Overcriminalization is the over-reliance upon the criminal laws to affect the way people behave. The problems that come from that there are many different kinds. It's not only what we make criminal, how we make it criminal, how the laws work, how they're enforced, who enforces them, who has the decision to enforce them.
What do we mean when we talk about overcriminalization? It's a word that means many different things to many different people, but at its core, it means that too many things are being defined today as crimes, i.e. things that can land you in jail as opposed to paying some sort of monetary penalty or what have you. And too many things are being prosecuted by the government, particularly by the federal government, which traditionally has left crime prevention largely in the hands of the states, but increasingly has been the prosecutor of choice when it comes to criminal law enforcement.
So the concept of overcriminalization has 4 points. One is Congress passes too many criminal laws. The second is that it passes too many overlapping criminal laws. Lots of different laws govern the same conduct. The third is when it does pass criminal laws, Congress doesn't clearly define what it takes to violate the law. And the fourth part of overcriminalization is that when it creates crimes, Congress imposes far too heavy penalties for the crimes that it does create.
Ordinary conduct, which no one would think is really criminal in nature, has a criminal penalty attached and therefore fits into this category that we would call overcriminalization.
Overcriminalization refers to the expansion, in recent years a fairly dramatic expansion, of conduct that has criminal consequences. It also refers to the tendency to take conduct that previously was criminal only under state or local law and to make it a federal crime. It can also refer to the weakening of mens rea standards, which are intent, state of mind standards.
As one prominent law professor put it, we've turned tort law into criminal law. And I think that part of the driver is that many people in the country, when someone is hurt, instead of just wanting compensation on the tort side, they want that person to go to jail. But we make a distinction between moral culpability and accidents. So for instance, I could be driving in a car and tragically kill another person. But there's a huge difference between whether I accidentally kill them and run them down deliberately. We all understand the distinction. One only involves civil liability. There's no moral culpability there. The other involves not only civil liability, it involves true moral culpability. You have the intent to kill. That's the distinction between civil and criminal. Unfortunately, I think that this distinction is being lost.
When you have some sort of an environmental catastrophe, a factory explosion, a mine collapse, whatever it is, we go right to criminality as the answer. And that's wrong. We've got to stop it. We've got to roll back this overcriminalization. And increasingly, this is what gives me hope for the future. Increasingly, people of all political philosophies are coming to recognize it. And that is why I believe we're on the cusp of a shift.
I don't know how your average law-abiding citizen actually determines what's criminal and what's not. At this point, we have 4,450 federal criminal laws on the books. And I'm pretty sure that I don't know all of them, and I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I don't know how your average citizen would know all of them. But it's not even just the 4,450 that's in the U.S. Code. We have, scholars have estimated, another 100,000, 200,000, maybe 300,000 federal laws that are hidden in our federal regulations. And I say hidden not because I'm trying to be provocative, but because our own government hasn't been able to count them all. They've been asked. The Department of Justice has been asked to tell us how many criminal laws exist and where are all of them. And they can't answer that question. So if they don't know, how do we know?
When we've seen this growth in regulatory offenses where there's no harm to any individual victim,
but rather it's that you essentially harm the government by doing an act that didn't harm any individual, and that oftentimes it's only fines that you're paying. There's no one to make restitution to because there is no individual victim. Then we're moving literally back to a day and age where when you had monarchies, and if you committed a crime against someone, there was no restitution to the victim. The money or fine and restitution went to the king because you harmed one of the king's subjects. And so this is totally at odds with the founding of our nation and our traditions, and we absolutely have to get back to the idea that crimes focus on harm to others, and that restitution to the victim needs to be foremost, and that this idea that the victim is the government is a really dangerous trend to follow.
Overcriminalization also applies to the problem of statutes that are written vaguely and worded so broadly that most American citizens wouldn't be able to figure out what's against the law and what isn't from not reading the law. And obviously the problem with that is if we don't understand what the law is, then we can't make sure that we're not violating it.
We have 2.3 million people in jail in this country. That's an unheard of statistic. We imprison more people than any other country on earth. Are we really a nation of bad people? Are we a nation of criminals? I don't think so. I think what we are is we are a nation that has become addicted to the idea that criminal sanctions are the way that we should run our society. And so we see this, whether it's in crimes related to substance abuse or crimes related to environmental abuse. Our first choice is a criminal statute and imprisonment, and we've got to change that. We can't have a network of laws that make it impossible for people to function